Welcome back to the channel, and for today's video, I'm gonna get straight to the point. I hate new school poker. Pre-flop charts, poker training sites, poker solvers, poker training books, all of it. Hate it, can't stand it. In fact, the hell with it. I think all that bullshit is what ruins what poker is intended to be. A fun game of luck and skill designed to bring out the competition and degeneracy in all of us. No one wants to play against a robot with zero personality running simulations at the table after every hand while watching Jonathan Little content on his phone. I mean, these GTO bots will tank for 2 minutes while hiding under their hoodie before making an all-in bluff that gets called by bottom pair from the drunk guy who's 12 beers deep by 9 a.m. Then they'll go back home all proud because the solver said it was the right play to do 89.2% of the time. Screw all that, man. I don't play blackjack, double down on an 11 against the dealer's 8, and then I'm happy that I lose the hand because I played it by the book. I can honestly say that I'd rather break even the rest of my life playing poker than have to ever study for 1 minute. I want to win or lose in poker through my natural ability I've learned throughout the years by getting my ass kicked by both variants and better players. Call it what you may, ego I guess is the best term, but if I ever have to run simulations through a solver to advance my poker career past the 1-3 level, then I have one thing to say.
I'm not leaving. I'm not fucking leaving! The show goes on! This is my home! They're gonna need a fucking wrecking ball to take me out of here!
Anyways, that's my controversial rant for the day, and let me know in the comments how you all feel with this subject. So with all that being said, let's go over some poker hands. For this vlog, we head to Capital Casino in the heart of Sacramento for a 1-3 match stack session, and things get insane because we have an action-packed lineup mixed with massive bomb pots. We buy in for our usual $500 to get things started, but unfortunately, after seeing some great hands and whiffing the flops completely in multi-way pots, we have to add on $100 early on, so we're into the game for $600 total. With some more swinging and missing over the next hour, we finally pick up a premium holding when we look down at the ladies, pocket queens in middle position. The $6 straddle is on, and one person in early position puts in the call. I raise up the price of poker to $25, and the action gets folded to the button, who now 3-bets to 80 total. It gets folded back to me, and now I have a decision. This player hasn't gotten out of line in the many sessions I've played with him so far, so when he puts in this raise, I think his hands are aces, kings, queens, ace-king, and maybe jacks. So instead of risking my entire stack pre-flop, let's take this hand to the streets. I put in the call, and with $165 in the middle, the dealer puts out a King 6-4 rainbow board, and I'm hating life. The main hand I was ahead of, which is ace-king, now made top pair. So I obviously check, but to my surprise, he checks it back. The turn comes out the 5 of spades, and I check again. He now down bets to $50, and I hate to call here, but for this price, I think I have to peel a card, hoping that he somehow has pocket jacks. So I put in the call, and with $265 in the middle, the river comes out the 5 of hearts. I check for a third time, begging for a check back, but he bombs it for $275, and I just snap fold. I think I maybe should have gone with it pre-flop, but as played, I think we did all right. We go back to the wallet to add on $200 to get more chips on the table, so we are now into the 1-3 game for $800. In this next hand, the $7 straddle is on, and I look down at ace-9 of clubs in the small blind. There's 3 limps to me, and I decide to over-limp with a pretty good suited ace. If I was in position, I would probably raise big, but since I'm out of position, I just want to try and see a cheap flop. The big blind also puts in the $7, and the straddler now checks his option, so we're going 6 ways to a flop, which comes out 9-7-5 rainbow with 1 club. With top pair top kicker, I throw out a $20 bet on a very connected board and get 3 calls. Since no one raised, I think I'm pretty sure I have the best hand still unless someone is slow playing a monster. We go to a turn with $117 in the middle, and it comes out the Queen of Diamonds. This card shouldn't really change too many holdings, so even though I could possibly still have the best hand, I decide to check, and now everyone checks it through. We're still going 4 ways to a river, which comes out the 10 of spades. The board is starting to get pretty bad for our holding, so I start off with the check again, and luckily, it gets checked through. I turn over my hand pretty confidently that I have the winner, but the button eventually turns over 10-6 offsuit for a rivered pair better than mine, and we lose yet another pot. After opening King-Queen offsuit to $25 and once again missing the board completely in a multi-way pot, we add on $300 to our stack because I hate being the short stack. So I'm now into the game for $1,100 total. In this next hand, we're playing the famous $15 Capital Casino Bomb Pot. You know it's an action-packed table when everyone decides to join, so everyone gets dealt a hand, and I look down at Jack-9 offsuit on the button. We're going straight to a flop, and it comes out 9-9-6 with 2 clubs, and we flop ourselves trips with a very good kicker. An early position player starts off with a $40 bet into a pot of $130, and the hijack puts in the call. With so many draws out there, I think it's time to raise the price of poker. Since neither player is too deep, I decide to just raise to a sizing of 110 total. The early position player puts in the call, and out of nowhere, the hijack decides to 4-bet jam all in. I ask the dealer for a count, and the total is $374. It's not too much, but I go in the tank for one of the longest times in recent memory and try to dissect the hand. Only 2 of us can have a 9 in our hand since there's already 2 out there, and I think right now I'm 100% certain that I have the early position player beat. He just flatted my 3-bet, so I think if he had a 9, he would have repopped it himself with a 4-bet. My read is that he most likely has a flush or straight draw that was trying to steal the pot cheaply with a $40 bet. Now, to try to figure out the hijack's range. I'm kind of thrown off because he just flatted the initial $40 raise, but now he decides to 4-bet all in. I'm confused why he just called the $40 and now wants to play for his entire stack. Having a weak 9 or an absolute monster 9 makes the most sense. So since I lose to less 9s than I beat, I think my hand needs full protection against the early position player's draws, so I 5-bet jam all in for my entire stack. The early position player kind of just chuckles and tosses black pocket aces in the muck. I turn over my hand like I always do when I'm all in, and unfortunately, we get the bad news when the hijack flips over King-9 offsuit for better trips, and we do not improve on the runout and lose a massive pot. Unfortunately, our stack has dwindled down significantly after that L, so there's only one thing to do. I add on $300 to our stack, and I'm now into the game for $1,400 total. And just a few minutes later, I thought, what the hell? Might as well unload the entire clip like I'm Rambo shooting a .50 caliber. So I add on my last $200 in my wallet, and I'm now into a 1-3 game for $1,600. Yikes. The $6 straddle is on, and 2 people limp in early position. I look down at my favorite hand in poker, the beautiful Jack-10 of diamonds, and raise it up to $25 in middle position. Only 4 people put in the call, and just like every single pot at Capital Casino, we're going 5 ways to a flop, which comes out King-Jack-8 rainbow with 1 diamond. The first 2 limpers check to me, and I decide to check it back as well because I don't think my hand is good enough to value bet in a super multi-way pot. Luckily, it gets checked around, and the turn brings out the 6 of diamonds, putting 2 diamonds on the board, giving us a pair and a flush draw. The small blind now puts in a bet of just $20 into a pot of $125, and next to act calls. Kind of in a weird spot because I don't think my jack is good here, but I also have a shit ton of equity and don't want the other players behind me to float with a weaker pair and get lucky. So I decide to do an unorthodox play that you won't see in those GTO solvers and put in a small raise to $60. I know this has zero fold equity, but I just want to be able to have position over the $20 better and caller and have a clear picture of what I could do on the river. That's exactly what we get when the other two players side fold and the two players put in the call. So now we're going three ways in position with $305 in the middle, and the dealer puts out the 6 of hearts on the river. The two players check to me, and my plan was to check any non-diamond back, so I stick with the plan, and the small blind shows ace-jack offsuit for the best hand. I toss my hand in the muck, and we move on. Our stack has dwindled down to less than $700, so we're casually creeping towards the $1,000 loss mark if things don't start to change. Let's hope that happens because an action player puts on the $10 straddle and two people limp to me in the small blind. I look down at the beautiful ladies once again, pocket queens, and it's time to bump up the price of poker. I raise them to $53 and the straddler and both limpers put in the call. So the action has completely died today because we're only going 4 ways to a flop, and this time with only $210 in the middle. We are in the worst position possible, so dealer, please give us a flop we could work with. Well, we get exactly that and then some when the flop comes out queen 6 deuce rainbow and we have ourselves top set. I don't think there's any other move than checking here, so that's what I do, but unfortunately the action gets checked through. The turn brings out the 2 of hearts, bringing 2 hearts on the board, but giving us a full house. Now I need to start building the pot, so I throw in a small amount of $65, and now the straddler jams all in. Next the act goes in the tank, but decides to eventually put in the call, and I'm mainly putting him on a heart draw or the rare occasion of him having the case queen. I don't see how anything other than those holdings could continue, so now that the action is back on me, unfortunately, all I can do is call since the all-in wasn't enough for me to raise. So I put in the $45 of extra chips. We're going heads up to a dry side pot and $540 in the main, and unfortunately we see a blank in the 9 of diamonds. There's no point in checking this to him because he has zero incentive to bluff a missed flush draw since he still has to beat the all-in player, so I decide to bet $135 to target a weak queen, but unfortunately, he snap folds. I show my hand right away, and the other player had 6-5 for middle pair that decided to go with his short stack, which I don't blame him. We finally take down a solid pot after losing for 3 straight hours.
It's about damn time.
We try to keep the momentum going when we're back for another famous $15 Capital Casino bomb pot. Only 7 people decide to join the party, so the pot is at an even $100 after the $5 drop. We get dealt the illustrious 9-8 offsuit in the cutoff, and the dealer puts out a flop of king 7-6 with 2 diamonds, giving us the open-ended straight draw. The action gets checked to the hijack, who throws out a $55 bet, and with my straight draw, I obviously put in the call. Both the small blind and big blind put in the call, so we're going 4 ways to a turn with $320 in the middle. We have the final say with position. The turn comes out the ace of hearts, putting 2 flush draws on the board, and now the action gets checked to me. I think the hijack must have had a king since he led on the flop and is now checking, so I debate putting in a semi-bluff, but decide against it since one of the blinds could easily have a hand like ace-x of diamonds, and to that, I have zero fold equity against. So I decide to check it back, and we see the beautiful 5 of hearts on the river giving us the nut straight. It does bring in the backdoor flush, which I was a little concerned about, but since the action got checked to me again, I wasn't worried anymore. I don't think these players have much since everyone checked both the turn and the river, so I decide to target an ace-x of diamonds hand or a strong king-x hand and throw out a bet of $155. The small blind snap calls and everyone else gets out of the way. I turn over my hand, and it's good against pocket 5s, giving our opponent a rivered set. If I knew what he had, I obviously would have bombed the river, but I didn't think anyone could be that strong given the action. No complaints here as we take down back-to-back legit pots.
Yeah, no. No, I mean, it didn't hit it till the river. The ace is...
The $10 straddle is on for this hand, and I look down at pocket 7s. I decide to just call the $10 in early position, and the cutoff does the same. The straddler checks his option, so we're going 3 ways to a flop with just $30 in the middle, and the flop comes out Jack 9-7 rainbow, giving us bottom set. Now I'm kicking myself for not opening this hand to $40.
What are you doing, idiot?
The straddler checks, and I throw out a half pot bet of $15, and both of them call. With $75 in the middle, we're going 3 ways to a turn, which is the disgusting 8 of spades, giving any 10 of straight.
That's gross.
Straddler checks, I now check, and luckily, the cutoff checks as well. The river is the ace of clubs, and when the straddler checks for a third time, I throw out a crying bet of $15 to hopefully get looked up light by any pair, but unfortunately, both of them fold, and we take down a nice little pot. The clock struck 2 after this hand, which is when I always leave, so let's get to the outro. A lot of you pointed out that I don't blink during these outros, and I honestly had zero clue, which I find completely comical. So I looked back, and guess what? You all were right. I promise I'm not on drugs because...
drugs are bad, okay?
So feel free to take any prop bets on how many blinks I have this outro. What an absolutely wild session to end the month on. The bomb pots were crazy, and we were down over $800 early on. Luckily, we were able to climb back a little after another big bomb pot and then having top set with pocket queens. So as for results, we unloaded the clip completely, and we were into the game for $1,600 and out for $1,272 for a $328 loss. As far as our live cash games go, we had a shitty end to the month. We played 2 sessions and lost both of them. The first one of the week, we got queens cracked twice in some pretty big pots. Then we had the session you all just watched. So we played 7 hours and 55 minutes of poker this week and lost $809. As for our online stats this week, we only played 3 short sessions and played a total of 2 hours, but we lost $199. I've noticed my online play has been pretty horrendous lately ever since I made the move up from 1-2. 50 No Limit had very similar gameplay to 1-2, but now that I'm buying into a 1-3 game for $1,600, my mind just thinks $50 is so minuscule now. I start pushing the action and bluffing like crazy, which is apparent in the results. We'll see if I continue playing online for the time being. So combining our live and online results this week, we played a total of 9 hours and 55 minutes of poker and had a net loss of $1,008. Not the best week, but let's see how the month ended up. As for our online results, I played 18 and a half hours of 50 No Limit and had a net loss of $168. We started off the month of February down over $2,000 immediately in our live results and went on an insane heater to bring it up to $1,300 in profit, but unfortunately we lost our last 2 sessions. So in total, we played 39 hours and 25 minutes of live poker, cashed in 6 out of 10 sessions, and profited $553. So in total, we played 57 hours and 55 minutes of poker and profited $385. Not the best month, but given our horrific start to the month, I'm happy to lock in a small win to the books. As always, I hope you rung it at the tables, and I'd appreciate it if you could hit the subscribe button to help me reach my year-end goal of 2,500 subscribers.